Hello, and welcome to ImpactoAZ, a podcast dedicated to centering Latinx voices on the important issues of the day. I'm your host, Jonathan Higuera, and I'm here today with my co-host, Juan Rodriguez, executive producer of ImpactoAZ, and David Lopez, a distinguished professor of practice at Arizona State University's School of Law. David is also a former resident of Maryvale, which is pertinent to this discussion because our guest today is State Senator Analise Ortiz, who represents Maryvale and Glendale. And we're so glad to have you on the show today, Senator Ortiz, and we're looking forward to a great discussion with you.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
Well, let's start off kind of going general to more specifics as we move through the show. But one thing I was very curious to know, I wanted to know more about your district, your constituents, and maybe how that shapes your priorities as a state legislator.
Yes, I'm so honored to serve as the state senator for the people of District 24, which includes the more western part of Maryvale in West Phoenix and the more southern part of Glendale. And this district is home to the largest Latino population in the entire state, which I'm very proud of. It's a very working class district. There are a lot of young families here as well. So it's a beautiful place with amazing small businesses, good food, good culture. And I think one of the things I love most about my district is when I go knock door to door, I meet the friendliest, most loving people. And that's really what drives me to work and fight so hard at the state capitol because my constituents really deserve the best from their government.
Excellent. And as also, not only does David have roots in Maryville, but I do too. I should mention that as well. I went to Trevor Brown High School out there,
Nice.
and so I'm very familiar with Maryville. And it's an area that's really sprawling, is it not? I mean, it used to be agriculture. When I went there, when I lived there, I remember we were in the last subdivision of John F. Long homes, and the rest was surrounded by alfalfa fields. All
Mhm.
those alfalfa fields slowly filled in, and it's become very urban, and it's large. So, tell us what some of your top priorities are in terms of legislation for this district.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There has been tremendous growth over the decades on the west side, but there also has been, unfortunately, a lot of divestment as well. Our district is home to some of the zip codes with the highest eviction rates in all of Maricopa County. And that has become one of the top priorities for me, housing and homelessness and eviction prevention. It is an issue that is impacting people of all ages, of all demographics. I've spoken to young people who can't pay their rent. I've spoken to empty nesters whose adult children are living with them because they can't find a place. And I've spoken to senior citizens on fixed incomes who are terrified of being evicted. And this is an issue that we must solve regionally because there's just so much at stake for our community members who have called Maryvale or Glendale home for so long and are now at risk of being pushed out of their homes. So that is a top issue for me, as well as just basic economic development and increasing wages. People should not have to work 2 or 3 jobs to put food on the table, but that's the reality for a lot of people right now. So I really care about strengthening workers' rights, bringing good paying jobs to our neighborhoods, and investing in our youth so that they can be set up on a good path for success as they go into adulthood in order to climb up in the world.
And that is an interesting point that you bring up about evictions, interesting issue. What can you propose legislatively to solve that? I mean, or is it more of just a big picture solution of better educational system, better jobs, or are there things you can do now to help the crisis?
Well, I serve as co chair of the Bipartisan Housing Caucus in the legislature, and we have been grappling with this question for the past couple of years that I've been serving in the state's legislature. When it comes to housing, it is a very complex issue, and there are many, many different solutions that we need on all levels of government. A few things I've been really proud that we've been able to achieve. Specific to evictions, this year I advocated for the state to invest in civil legal aid so that people who are being evicted can get an attorney if they cannot afford one. It was the first time in state history that we put state funds towards civil legal aid to help with things like eviction prevention. Then, when we look deeper into the root causes of the problem, Arizona is in a housing shortage. We have about 200 people moving here every single day, and we are not building enough homes to keep up with that demand. So we passed two bills in 2024 that I co-sponsored to bring more housing options to legalize backyard casitas, duplexes, and triplexes, which had actually been banned in some cities, so that we can encourage the development of more homes and different types of homes. As we increase the supply, we can work to lower the cost of rent regionally, and we are actually already seeing some of that slowed rent growth as a result of some of the deregulation we've done to build more housing. So it's a long process, it's a complicated process, but I'm more committed than ever to finding the solutions we need to Arizona's housing crisis.
And if I understand it, you are in your first term as a senator, state senator, correct?
That's
Okay.
right. I served one term in the House.
And you served one term in the House. Do you find there's a major difference between being a representative versus a senator, or is it two sides of the same card?
The job itself is the same. I would say the biggest difference is that every district in Arizona, there's 30 districts. Each district has two representatives and one senator. So there are less members in the Senate. So that creates a different dynamic. It means there's a little bit more pressure from the lobbying class when it comes to just having less votes. It also means that my constituents are reaching out to me more frequently because they only have one senator versus having two representatives they could go to. So that constituent work has definitely become more of a priority in the Senate. And I love that constituent work. It's really important to me. So there are little differences here and there, but overall, it is still the job of creating laws, voting on laws, and getting a state budget done every year.
Okay. And it's really no secret that our state legislature is Republican dominated in both chambers, right? Um, so how do you move your issues forward when you're dealing with that dynamic?
It is a fascinating dynamic. And then we have a Democratic governor. So we really do have a divided government where it really forces us to work across the aisle. I cannot get my bills heard in committee unless a Republican chairman decides the bill is good enough to their liking to put on an agenda. So that means we have to bring ideas that will appeal to both sides of the aisle. And that can be challenging. I'm somebody that believes in strong, bold, progressive policy. So I will pour a lot of time and energy into getting a bill done, getting a bill written that I know might not receive a hearing. But it's really important to me to show my constituents what the alternative could look like if we did have a state that was a majority of elected officials who care about people. It also means that I have been able to have success by having conversations with my Republican colleagues and not shutting the door. We might disagree on one issue, but we might find common ground on another. And that has helped me be successful, particularly on issues like housing, where people of all demographics are struggling with housing. I've also had success with criminal justice reform. We've been able to get Republican support for a lot of policies that help people get back on their feet after they've been in prison. And that's been really encouraging to see.
Okay. Well, I know we could talk a lot about the issues and everything you're doing, and I hope we get into it as the show goes along. But I think our viewers would also like to know a little bit more about you, your path, how you came to the position you're in, what propelled you to this life of public service that you're in to run for office. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your beginnings, where you're from, where you were born, What were some of the markers in life that kind of led you down this path?
I was born and raised here in Arizona. I grew up in a big family. I have five siblings, and my parents are both educators. My dad, a community college professor, and my mom, a paraprofessional in an elementary school. And growing up, I always recognized that there was injustice that existed in the state of Arizona. I think any young brown kid who grew up here can relate to that. We saw the way Sheriff Arpaio terrorized our Latino community. We saw the divestment from our public education system. And I always had this urge inside of me to fight back against injustice. That also might be because I'm the fifth of the six kids. So I had to kind of always fight for myself as well. And I went to journalism school actually at ASU. I wanted to shine a light on injustice and
Yay,
become a
journalism.
reporter. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I loved the Cronkite School of Journalism. Some of my first assignments, I was sent to the state capitol to report on legislation. And I think that's where the light bulb kind of went off for me to recognize that the reason why certain things were the way they were is because of bad choices made by politicians. I was a reporter for about 3.5 years. I covered Trump's first election while working along the Texas-Mexico border, where presidential candidates were telling lies and misinformation about our border communities and then leaving right away and not even getting to know our border community. I covered the horrible mass shooting on the Las Vegas Strip in 2017. And I knew that politicians were once again not going to do anything about gun violence. And I made the tough decision in 2018 to leave my TV career because I really wanted to be doing more to fight back against what was happening in our country. So I took the leap and started working at a civil rights organization, the ACLU of Arizona. I was training people on how to give testimony down at the state legislature. And after a few years of doing that work, a legislator asked me if I had ever considered running, and I had not. But I started to think about it because we had just gone through the pandemic. Rent was being increased constantly. Our healthcare system had let people down during the pandemic. And I felt, if not this moment, then when will I do it? And I took the leap and went for it. And that was in 2022.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please do.
ACLU of Arizona is great. And, I've only been back for 4 months, but I partnered with Victoria Lopez and
Yeah.
met Jared Keenan, who came out of the ACLU as well. But one of the things that has really interested me, both academically, but also in terms of community engagement, is really what we call the SB 1070 generation, and just really how that whole period of time politicized a large swath of the community. And, John and I came from another generation that was not as activist. And for me to see in April 2010, all the young people walking out of schools and marching to the Capitol, really, I think, serves as an inspiration for a lot of what's going on today. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the lessons from the SB 1070 generation for the United States in the year 2025.
Absolutely. For anyone listening who might not know, SB 1070 was known as the Show Me Your Papers law, a horrific law that the state of Arizona passed that ended up ultimately, pieces of it got struck down in federal court for violating the Constitution. And this type of basically legalized racial profiling galvanized a whole generation of activists, many of whom I was so fortunate to learn from in 2018 when I worked at the ACLU, because they were fighters and movement builders who continued to work to change the state of Arizona to where we are today. And throughout that, era, I think that it really showed that young people have a drive and a resilience to fight and to strategize when it comes to their basic human rights and issues of survival. And that's really what that moment was.
Yeah.
Now we are at a place where Arizona and Joe Arpaio essentially wrote the playbook for what Trump is doing on the federal level now. And people like Victoria Lopez and some of the young organizers from the SB 1070 days are now leading this fight against Trump, and taking the lessons that we learned from those moments in order to build the resistance. And I've been so encouraged to be in some of those rooms, including with people like Alfredo Gutierrez, the former Senate minority leader who passed away earlier this year, who was a giant in our immigrants' rights movement, who really empowered and emboldened a lot of the young people during SB 1070 to fight back, and they always knew that Alfredo would have their back. And people like Carlos Garcia, former Phoenix City Council member, I've learned a lot from. So we really do have something so special here in Arizona when it comes to the Latino civil rights movement.
Yeah, I had Danny Ortega in my class today, and I sort of paraphrased the old movie Stand and Deliver, and
Okay.
I'm like, you have resistance in your genes, burros. Right.
Yeah.
Because we won everything. I mean, we knocked down
Yeah.
SB 1070.
Took out
We,
Russell
we
Pierce.
we ran Russell Pierce. We ran Joe Arpaio. We struck down the Mexican. Us in the Valley often forget about the Mexican American Studies band because they carried that fight in Tucson. And so, I teach it just as sort of a blueprint for today. And I think all of us. I was just back at my old law school. And I'm like, those of us in Arizona, when we see what's going on, we're like, we know this movie, but we
Yeah.
also know how to beat this movie. Like we
Yeah.
know how to win this,
Yeah.
and we just need to sort of keep tapping into that history with people like you.
Yeah. Well,
And
thank you. That's a huge honor for you to say that. But yeah, that was one of the last times I saw Alfredo Gutierrez, was at a community meeting where he relayed that same message of we've been here before and we've won before. So I really take that message to heart.
Where
and
were
this
you in
might be a
Texas,
good
by the way?
time.
I'm sorry.
And this might be a good time to congratulate you, David, on the launch of the new Civil Rights, Migration, and Workplace Law Initiative that the Arizona State Law School is now. You founded and are leading, and now will be part of the law school's initiative. So
Thank you. And that's what brought
congratulations.
me back home. So
Congratulations. That's incredible.
thank you for the shout out. Where were you in Texas, by the way? Just out of
I lived in
curiosity.
the Rio Grande Valley in McAllen.
Okay, because I was teaching about SB4 and Operation Lone Star, but you reach a certain age or maybe a maturity level where you want to see things with your own eyes. So I was down working with some groups in Eagle Pass and
Okay.
Laredo and Nuevo Laredo. I know that's where Juan is from.
Yeah.
And those are some warriors. They're fighting a really tough
Yeah.
fight. Texas is a tough nut to crack. I think in Phoenix, all the action was in Maricopa County, but in
Mhm.
Texas, it's so geographically dispersed, and there are just a lot more challenges that they're facing down there. But I had the exact same reaction. It's like what Elon Musk and Fox News is telling you is exactly the opposite of what I was seeing on the ground, right? And it was really the sort of the police state. It feels like a police state down there now.
Yes.
Um,
Oh,
it
yeah.
that I've never felt so unfree, right?
Hmm. Juan,
Yeah.
do you have any thoughts as well on that,
Eagle Pass.
Well,
Mr. Eagle Pass guy?
I'm my family's from Eagle Pass. I was raised in Illinois, but I spent a lot of summers growing up in Eagle Pass, and I go back yearly. And I've always, especially starting around 2018, 2019, I felt the creep coming in with the Customs and Border Control, pretty much controlling the infrastructure, where people move, where they can go, putting up Jersey barriers here and there. They took over a an area right there on the river that was supposed to be for public use, or like
Shelby Park.
Shelby Park. Yeah, and I've taken. I work up mainly on political campaigns, and I've taken candidates there, to explore the river, the border there, and so they can see for themselves what's going on. And it's disturbing. And what I wanted to touch on, since we're talking about Eagle Pass, and you lived in the Rio Grande Valley, and you worked there, and as a journalist, I'm sure a lot of the stories you covered impacted you personally. Um, for me, I work mainly in field and also communications for the campaigns I work on. And for me, I've been very disturbed by the fact that corporate Hispanic media in the U.S., for the most part, isn't really Hispanic owned, and is capitulated, and it's playing, the two major players, Univision, which is has a quasi-partnership with ABC, and Telemundo, which is outright owned by Comcast and part of the NBC News division, are running DHS ads, and that
Department of Homeland Security ads.
right. And I was telling John earlier, pretty much for recruitment. I was telling John before we came on that it's a big ball of twine, and that it's not just the corporations running these ads; it's also the advertisers, who are buying time on these shows, on these networks. What does and how do you feel about what it does to our? I think it's a betrayal of the community,
Yeah,
and
I
I just want to know
absolutely
what you
agree.
thought about that.
Yeah, I saw there's a petition going around asking Univision and Telemundo to stop running these horrible, hateful, racist, anti-immigrant ads. It has, I think, almost 5,000 signatures when I looked at it. I think it's an absolute slap in the face to the Latino community, many of whom rely on Univision and Telemundo for their news and to have updates about the rapidly changing immigration environment. So for those families who rely on what should be a trustworthy network to then see just absolute propaganda being run by DHS is very, very disturbing to me. I think they need to pull those immediately. And I think it's important for consumers to remember that we have power. We saw the Disney Plus boycott over the Jimmy Kimmel issue, and that how that was successful in getting them to put Jimmy Kimmel back on the air after Trump had intimidated them. And so I think it shows that our wallets have power and boycotts work. And I know that I am going to stop listening to the Telemundo podcast I listen to each morning.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
And that's a lesson from SB 1072, because I think the state boycott really caught the attention of the business community, and the threat to pull the All-Star game, and that, the threat to, the actual cancellation of several conventions really shone a negative spotlight on Arizona in a way that, that brought in people who may not have been natural allies, but had sort of a pocketbook interest in what was going on.
Yeah, money talks.
Yep.
Well, and
Sure.
speaking of money, or maybe even not a lot of money, your district is probably one of the, well, I don't know about your district, but Maryvale in general has seen that disinvestment that you mentioned. So we're talking about people who maybe are on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum. And what can we do about that? Well, I mean, was it classic white flight and then people of color moving in? I know you have a lot of immigrants in your area, and just what is the dynamic there that seems to be not coming out about Maryvale? What do we need to know more of to be able to help lift it up?
Well, something I'm so proud of with our district is that we have so many small business owners and entrepreneurs who really are the backbone of our local economy here in Maryvale. I just took a group of local business owners going through Fuerza Local's program to the state capitol to learn how to testify, to give them some information about how to best engage with their elected officials. So I think that's part of it, is empowering the community to engage and advocate for ourselves about what we need from both the state government and the local government. When it comes to the state of Arizona in general, right, we have had a long-standing attack on unions and on allowing people to organize their workplace to fight for things like higher wages and better workplace conditions. So I am a very strong supporter of making it easier to unionize in the state of Arizona and stopping the attacks on unions and working class people. Because as the working class is getting poorer, the billionaires are getting richer. And that is absolutely abhorrent, and it shouldn't be happening in the richest country in the world. And I think that that is a key part of it, is making it easier to unionize and giving people the rights to be able to negotiate with dignity with their employer. There's also a lot that we can do around youth development, bringing more education, career technical education, investing in apprenticeship programs for children that might want to join the trades, allowing them to get a peek into what it's like to join a trade when they're younger so that they can then get on that path early and get on to a good paying job right out of high school or right out of trade school or college. So all of those things I think really need to be working in tandem together to get us to a place where we have better paying jobs and better opportunities for our Latino community. Glendale Community College has really great programs around nursing. I was just on their campus doing a food distribution the other day and saw how the nursing students are, getting the hands-on skills they need and then getting into good paying jobs after their 2-year degree at Glendale Community. So all of these things, they're happening in our communities, but we need more of it, and we need more investment to make these types of opportunities possible.
Interesting. Yeah. And I should mention too that you also part of your district is Old Town Glendale, which
Yes.
is a lovely mix of businesses, both
Mhm.
restaurants, nightlife, other types of business, antique shops. And it's an interesting place because it feels like it's had its ups and downs in terms of its life cycle. But it really is one of those things that make Arizona, Arizona, right? Old Town Glendale. And there's a lot of fun things. What's it been like for you representing those business owners there and that whole area?
I love representing downtown Glendale. It is the hidden gem of the West Side. And it actually got drawn into my district during the redistricting process. It used to be in Recaltaran's district, which was a neighboring district. And the small business owners there are incredible. You have people who have been there for decades, many of the antique shops, and then you have newer businesses like Homage Coffee, which is they're just the sweetest couple that runs that shop. Blue Corn Bakery is an award-winning bakery now, which is really cool. Inkenstein Tattoos is a tattoo shop that I had been following on Instagram since I was like in high school thinking about what first tattoo I wanted. So it really is a special place. And every holiday season, Glendale Glitters happens, and Glendale Glitters is kicking off on November 28th, where they light up all of downtown Glendale. It's a free event for the family to go walk around, see the Christmas lights, support the small businesses. It really is a special place.
And my mom's favorite place was Bitsy Mama's.
Yes, Bitsy Mamas. How can I forget? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's right.
Yes,
You gotta
the
shout
best
out. You gotta
Mexican
shout
food.
out Bits. You gotta shout out Bitsy Mama's.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we could probably cut this out. But what was your first tattoo?
You can have this in there. My first tattoo was actually the heart-shaped hand grenade from Green Day's American Idiot album.
Oh, there you go.
I'm a big, big Green Day fan.
Oh, okay. All right.
One of the things that that I do with my program is because we brand it as Derechos y Esperanza, and that's because joy and hope are really essential to the moment that we're in.
Yeah.
And so I guess one of the things that I'm always really interested in is what is giving you hope these days.
Such a great question. Because you're right, it's hard right now. It really can be hard. I am finding a lot of hope in the way that neighbors have stepped up to help neighbors in such a challenging moment. Everything from immigration to what happened with food stamps being taken away earlier this month to the Medicare costs skyrocketing. All of it is causing so much anxieties for our community. But I have seen people step up in such beautiful ways to take care of one another. I have seen, one of my constituents who said that her mom was ashamed to ask for food. So I told her about a nonprofit called Harvest Compassion Center, which looks just like a grocery store. You go in, you pick things off the shelves for yourself. It takes away some of that shame. And she took her mother-in-law there and then followed up with me to say thank you. And then she said, I'm now going to volunteer at this place. And it just really warmed my heart to know that even in a tough situation, they are willing to use their time to give back to the community that helped them. So those are the types of stories that are really keeping me going right now because our community the best way that we can get through this is to be looking out for each other, taking care of each other, offering a helping hand. And people are really, really going above and beyond to do that in this moment.
That's wonderful.
When I think about Maryvale, it brings me back to my youth, obviously, and those memories. And I played a lot of sports. It was a lot of Little League, Pop Warner. And then our middle schools, we called them junior highs back then, and high schools had good programs that could keep us occupied. And it was kind of a multicultural place back then. I had friends who were Irish from New York, and it was just a real mix. Mexican American coming up from the South Side got removed from Golden Gate and moved to Maryvale. It was just a real mix of people, and I don't know if the youth today in Maryvale are that multicultural. I taught for a little bit in the Alhambra School District, and it was 99% felt like Mexican or Mexican, maybe Salvadoran, Honduran, but it was very Latino, and so it doesn't seem to have that. It seems segregated sometimes. But I just want to hear what's going on with our youth. What can we do for them? What do they need? Are there some areas of opportunity? Are there some areas of challenges that we need to be aware of? I know that's a broad question, but just in general, I'd like to hear about the youth of Maryvale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just as an addendum, I think I said that both my late father and my sister are public school teachers in Maryvale, and they're great teachers and they have big hearts and they're great people. And it seems like the kids are fighting every single odd against them. And just my sister is a classic fourth grade teacher who buys her own supplies and goes in there and stays after hours, and it's really kind of heartbreaking to see the struggle that she has with these kids who come in there, so eager to learn, and they're in a system that just really seems to just sort of discard them.
Yeah. It is horrible when you hear those stories of kids going through things that a child should not have to go through. I think right now we are seeing so much of the anxieties that kids are facing because of the immigration issue. They might come from a mixed status family, and the absolute fear and terror of not knowing if your parent is going to be home when you come home from school is just unimaginable. And one of the things that motivates me to continue being a strong outspoken voice on immigration, because our kids deserve to be with their families. Our families deserve to belong together and not have the threat of state violence separating them. But that's what our children are experiencing right now. We also have the continued issues with violence in our communities. Earlier this year, there was a tragic, tragic story of a teen at Maryvale High School who was stabbed by another teen in their classroom. And the trauma that comes from all of the students who knew them and loved them and now have to deal with this tragedy, it just breaks my heart. We need to have more, in my view, social emotional learning for young people to recognize from a young age that it's okay and safe to share how they're feeling and what they're going through, and get them connected to counseling services, mental health services, or the actual physical resources they and their family might need. Things like food and healthcare, right? A child cannot learn if they're going to school hungry. They can't be in a right frame of mind to make friends and be positive if they're hungry. And food insecurity is still a huge, huge factor for kids here in Maryvale and Glendale. The stress of going through an eviction at a young age, the majority of people that are being evicted have kids. And what does that mean for a young child to hear one day that they are going to be put out on the streets? So we need to have so many interventions for these young people, and I'm so appreciative for the educators in Maryvale who, like you said, pour their heart and soul into going above and beyond for their students. But it shouldn't all fall on the educators. The state needs to be doing a better job. The city needs to be doing a better job. And I take that very seriously.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, that makes me really reflect on what's happening with the youth. And, and what that means for the fufuture, right?
Yeah,
If
and
their opportunities are stunted.
I do just want to highlight some of the positive.
Yeah.
The Mi Familia en Acción does a fellowship program where it's called Emerging Leaders, and they teach leadership skills. And I was just speaking at their graduation for their cohort this year. There were a number of different high school students, including high school students from Maryvale and Metro Tech, who put on food drives at their school during that first month of November when food stamps were paused. And they collected all of these canned goods and took them to a local food pantry, and then they gave out a report about what they learned about food insecurity. So there is so much good that is happening, and there are so many young people that are so bright and so caring and compassionate and wanting to do anything they can to give back to their classmates in the broader community. So that moment, it was just a couple weeks ago, meeting those teens really warmed my heart and made me hopeful.
Yeah, bravo.
Beautiful, beautiful. Juan, I don't know if there's anything you want to ask. I know I have a couple more questions on my list, but I'll let you guys, if there's something you really want to
Yeah,
dig into.
I'd like to talk more about. We had the chair of the Arizona Democratic Party on recently as a guest,
Okay.
and she was great. And I asked her this, and I'm always curious because I've worked in Arizona.
Oh no,
Uh-oh, we lost them.
we keep losing him.
Yeah, people keep going in and out. I'm not sure what he was going to ask, but we did have a marvelous interview with Charlene Fernandez. Oh, there he
Okay.
is. Okay.
Sorry about that. I got cut off. Where was I? Oh yeah, I worked in Arizona before. I worked there last cycle. I worked in Tucson, and I, I I worked the field program there. And what I really enjoyed was seeing the amount of Latinx candidates running for office and winning.
Yeah.
And uh, what do you see as the future of Latino candidates in Arizona?
Well, I hope we get at some point our second Latino governor, because it's been way too long since Castro was governor. So I'd love to see that. I am so proud of when we go to conferences across the nation, whether it's NALEO, the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, or other conferences. Arizona rolls deep with our Latino contingency. Our legislature is actually 1/3 Latino, which is reflective of the state. And not every state can say that. And it's because of people like Alfredo Gutierrez who paved the way for us to be there, and Charlene Fernandez, right? When I was first thinking of running for office, Charlene was in the legislature at the time, and she was one of the few legislators who met with me. I was a nobody, just wanting to see what it would be like to run for office. She met with me, and then afterwards, she sent me a card that said Adelante on it in the state of Arizona, and she said, I hope you run. And I wouldn't be here without Charlene, pushing me to do it. And so it's so beautiful that Latinos in Arizona take up space in these rooms of power, and we mentor each other and we grow our power. So my hope is that we will continue to see young leaders. We will continue to have a strong voice as a Latino community, and we'll stay united in the issues we're fighting for our gente, and maybe possibly a Latino governor in the soon future.
We just had an event at ASU, the launch for the Civil Rights Initiative, and we had Alma and Consuelo Hernandez, and then we had Lorena Austin. So I'm sure they know you,
Yeah.
and you know them. And we got a picture of them, and they were with our VIP, and they're all like flashing the ASU sign. And so I know that you're a Sun Devil too, so you can continue to fear the fourth.
Absolutely.
There you go. And then one more goopy provincial question, then I'll leave it to the serious journalist. West Side, Best Side, right?
Yes,
West Side, Best
absolutely. West Side, Best
Side.
Side, especially when it comes to tacos.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, well, I think that's a good positive note where we can start to wrap this up, unless there's anything we didn't ask you, Senator Ortiz, that you think would be important to mention to our viewers and to just get out there.
Well, I'm just very appreciative for this opportunity, and I am running for re-election in 2026. I'm looking forward to continuing the fight for our community, so it's going to be a busy year ahead.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you for having us. And I just want to take a moment to say this has been brought to you from ImpactoAZ. We hope you like our content, and to continue bringing you this kind of content, please like and subscribe to our channel. And I would be remiss not to mention our technical editor who makes sure our audio and video is clean and presentable, and that would be Mr. Ron Oyos. So thank you, co-host, for making this a very nice podcast and interview. And thank you, Senator Ortiz, for all your insights. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
day.